Child marriage has a huge negative impact in our community, like so many communities around the globe. When girls are married off at a younger age, they definitely leave school for the most part, and they more likely become pregnant as teenagers. And all of these things lead to health complications. And when girls aren't able to go to school, they're less likely to be able to support themselves financially, have a say in their community. So really the impact is holistic and deeply ingrained, and really keeps girls and their communities and their families back from achieving their full potential in the workplace, and in the home and in their community at large.
Child marriage is any marriage below the age of consent. The Ugandan Constitution of 1995 provides that any Ugandan at the age of 18 and above is an adult, and this goes for both boys and girls. So that means that any marriage below the age of 18 is child marriage.
With child marriage, girls don't get a chance to go to get an education. You have children bearing children who are physically not ready for bearing children yet, and then if they marry without an education, they're just ill-equipped to start a whole family and to take care of their children. With education, as each year of education increases, a woman can become more productive and therefore help more in building up the society. I've noticed that students that come to us whose mothers have had some education, primary school, and a few who have secondary school, they're brought up very differently than girls that come from mothers who have no education, which is not their fault. The women that have no education can hardly speak Swahili. They want something else for their daughters, but they don't know even how to get it. Whereas women who have had some education are thinking of all different ways how they can educate their daughters and getting them into different private schools and so on if they're able. So child marriage has really negative effects on the society because the mother, who is really the mainstay of raising children and taking care of children, doesn't have the skills to do this.
Child marriage impacts both boys and girls, but it disproportionately impacts young girls. And it's harmful because it really impacts the entire life of a young girl with both social and economic consequences. Girls who marry early have very little or no access to formal education, which impacts their opportunities later in life. Child brides also face a higher risk of experiencing dangerous and life-threatening complications during pregnancy, often due to their age, contracting STIs, and also experiencing violence at the hands of their intimate partners. When girls are forced to marry early, opportunities for them to learn and reach their full potential is essentially taken away from them. And communities and societies as a whole can lose out on those contributions that women and girls would make later outside of the private sphere. Often when people think or talk about child marriage, they assume it only happens in certain countries, and it's typically lower income countries that are the focus. However, child marriage is a worldwide issue, and it happens and is an issue in the United States, as well as other higher income countries such as Australia or other countries throughout Europe. The organizations working on child marriage here in the US hear about cases every day, and the situation is really similar when we talk about it in other countries. We're talking about violence, economic deprivation, and being ostracized by their families. And there are a lot of stereotypes about child marriage, but it really, early and forced marriage affects all kinds of families and individuals, immigrant, non-immigrant families. It also happens in diverse religious and sociocultural backgrounds. So it's not like there's one place to look for this occurrence or practice, which makes it really, really difficult to track. And in the US, there are many current laws that have loopholes that really allow early and forced marriage to persist across the US. So for example, the minimum age law in most states is 18, but this can be overridden with parental or judicial consent and or pregnancy. So the organizations that are addressing child marriage in the US, like the Tahiri Justice Center, are really collecting the much needed research and pushing for better legislation and laws and services for people who have been forced into child marriage.
Child marriage disproportionately affects young girls, especially between the ages of about 14 and 18. About 700 million women alive today were married as children, so under the age of 18, compared to about 150 million men. So while, of course, men are affected and boys are affected, girls absolutely are disproportionately affected.
It's obvious that young girls are most affected than boys. Do not forget that we are in Africa, and traditions are very, very, very strong. From the studies we got with the Ministry of Social Action and National Solidarity, more than 6,325 young girls are affected by child marriage, while only 816 boys are affected.
Child marriage mainly affects the girl child, whereas boys may be affected but not as much as girls. You find that in Uganda, 46% of the girl children are married off by 18 years, and 12% are married off at 12 years. 12% are married off at 15 years. What does this mean? A child is forced into another institution altogether. Whereas she's supposed to be at school, playing with other colleagues and doing all sorts of childish games, she's being taken into marriage. And the worst of all is that the husbands or the would-be husbands are big men. Children are being taken on to be second and third and fourth wives in some instances when it comes to religious beliefs. So child marriage mainly affects the girl child. You find that if the boys, it could be a case of impregnating a girl, but this boy can still go back to school. However, for a girl, she has been taken on, she gets pregnant, and then school ends at that level. So whereas the girls are mostly affected, child marriage is not good for either boys or girls.
Tanzania has one of the highest rates of child marriage, where almost 2 out of 5 children are married before the age of 18. And in a UNICEF study done in 2016, it said 7% of the girls were married before they were 15, and 37% were married by the time that they were 18. These statistics are general for the country, but because there are over 120 different cultural groups in Tanzania, each group will have their own customs and traditions about marriage and when a girl should be married. Among the pastoralists where I'm working, these girls would be married in their mid-teens. Unless there's some other intervention. Very few parents will try to send their children off to school and get them educated, except the parents themselves who have an education that are not just primary school education, but secondary and further education. They will be ones who are more eager to send their girls to school, whereas the ordinary person will not. Um, the percentages are uneven throughout the country, finding that the regions where there are more rural people have a tendency to have more early marriage. Also, Manyara region, which has a high percentage of pastoralist Maasai, also has a high percentage of child marriage. So you have a difference of rural to urban, you have a difference of each cultural group. I think child marriage occurs, I think one big reason is culture and traditions. Among the Maasai and other pastoralists, girls would be married as soon as they reached puberty, and then they would start having children. They receive their parents receive a dowry, which is a number of cows, and they often then use that dowry to find wives for their sons. Another reason is poverty. People who are poor see their daughters as a source of income. So if girls are married off early, then the parents will receive some kind of dowry. It depends, again, on each cultural group as to how many cows, what kind of dowry. Is it cash or livestock?
So, like in the rest of the world, in most places, in Kenya, where our organization, Kenya's DreamWorks, child marriage once again disproportionately affects young girls. In fact, more than a quarter, or about 1 in 4 girls in Kenya were married before the age of 18. But the more you go into rural communities, communities where girls are not being educated, that goes up quite a bit.
We work mostly with the Maasai tribe, and they are a polygamous tribe, and often a man has 4 wives and as many as 24 children, and sometimes more. Secondary school in Kenya is very expensive. It could be $1,000 tuition, supplies, transport, uniforms are all extra. And you can see how it would be difficult for a man to support so many children in secondary school. So if a man has a choice, he will send one of his sons to school. That's why we match girls with sponsors and try to get them all the way through secondary school and through the university. A major impediment to girls staying in school is that they have very few successful role models, and especially very few women who have completed college or gotten a job. On the other hand, they have many, many role models in the Maasai community of girls following the traditions of dating, getting married as early as 16, and going through the female circumcision, which we call female genital mutilation. For thousands of years, girls have done this, and on that day when they go through their ceremony, they actually change their name in Ma from girl to woman. And many, many girls look forward to this. When I started to work with the girls on this subject, I expected it would be their mothers, their fathers, their grandparents that would object. But it was truthfully the young women. Since all of their peers had gone through the ceremony, they wanted to have the ceremony too. They said, "Debbie, how will we become women?" So we developed an alternative rite of passage. We have the entire ceremony. They have to bleed, so we have a little nick on the leg. And that day, they change their name to woman, and this has been very successful. We've had over 15 ceremonies, and hundreds of girls have attended. And now they're parents, and they love the ceremony, and they're happy with the result, and they don't generally have the cut.
So the organization I work with, Kekenya's Dream, works primarily in Narok County, which is a much more rural, less urban community. And child marriage occurs here at higher rates than the national average, as does female genital mutilation. More girls are out of school, there's high rates of HIV/AIDS, poverty, and all of these factors contribute to the higher than normal rates of child marriage being practiced, which is why it's so important that our organization has programs that are taking place, because all of these root causes, poverty, lack of resources, more broadly, lack of educational opportunities for girls, contribute to parents and other guardians making decisions for their daughters to be married early.
What can I say is that the issues in West Africa may be seen as an overall problem all West Africa countries are confronted with. West Africa is roughly made up of 16 countries sharing the same traditions and practices. This means that all women and girls are victims of discrimination and violence just because of their genders. Countries where child marriage is more prominent include Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, Nigeria, Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, Benin, Togo, and Ghana. Among the studies tend to say that Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso are the two most affected by child marriage.
For any human rights violation, it's important to analyze the root causes, and so we have to do the same for early and forced child marriage. For some of the root causes, we need to look at why a guardian or parents would decide to marry off their young children, especially young girls. And there's no, of course, there's no straightforward answer, but in many cases, there might be economic or societal pressures. Some families might marry off young girls because they don't see any other options. They don't think there are any other options, such as formal education, and the barriers to other options might seem insurmountable. Some families might see early and forced marriage as the way or the only way to protect the young girls from violence in the communities or in countries that are conflict-ridden. In some instances, communities practice early and forced marriage as a way to consolidate different groups or different communities. In other instances, there might be economic benefits or incentives, such as the girl's family receiving a dowry from another family. So it really does vary across the world and across different communities. I think another contributing factor is the fact that there isn't a lot of well-known research out there about child marriage, and there's a lot of misinformation about child marriage. So, for instance, I mentioned before that a lot of people don't know that the practice of child marriage happens in the United States and is a worldwide issue. And I think for a lot of people, when we think about child marriage, we think about it as an isolated event, when in fact, again, it is worldwide. So we need more research, and we need more information and more education around the practice and why it is so harmful.
In order to really end the practice of child marriage and to empower the girls it affects, we absolutely must understand and address the root causes of the issue. One of the big ones that we deal with every day is the fact that most people don't even realize that child marriage is an issue. They were married themselves as children, everyone they know has, and many even believe, because of the status that marriage brings young girls, that it's a great thing for them, that it's something to be celebrated. So one of the key things we do and that we advocate for and across all communities is talking to parents, to mothers, to grandmothers, to leaders in the community, religious leaders, about the negative effects of this practice. So spreading information that counters the misinformation that's been passed on is absolutely key. So talking about the issues with early pregnancy, and that girls have a right to go to school, and the financial benefits of waiting on marriage for families. All of these things really help parents see that maybe the best way to help and support their child is to wait on marriage, because no parent really wants to see their child suffer, or to see her suffer in childbirth or suffer in a marriage. So it's key to bring that truthful information and create a new normal within a community. Another root cause of the frequent practice of child marriage is the fact that many laws in different countries are weak or not enforced. So in Kenya, where we work, there are actually excellent child marriage laws on the books. It is not allowed, but unfortunately it is not enforced as often as it should be by law enforcement, by government ministry, and also, if a marriage isn't registered, or it's not on the books, or if, at the very most local level of government it's not reported, it's very difficult to enforce and then to hold parents and others accountable for performing that marriage. So one thing that we work on is prevention rather than just holding others accountable, because it is really difficult to track when those are taking place. In order to really end the practice, though, having good laws on the books that law enforcement is able to hold people accountable for and actually end the practice will absolutely be crucial. Another one of the root causes of child marriage that really does not get the discussion time that it merits is just general insecurity caused by poverty, by conflict, unstable and oppressive governments. You talk about in different crises how parents are more concerned about the future of their children financially, security-wise, and oftentimes her marriage to an older man who can protect her, provide for her, helps both the family, who is one less mouth to feed and to protect in a time of instability, and is also maybe seen as a value add for the daughter, who now has this new status. And so while it's interconnected with a lot of the other factors that exist outside of times of great instability, there definitely is a connection there that scholars are beginning to understand and look at more, and that we can be aware of in preventative, humanitarian, and human rights work.
The root causes of child marriage is mainly lack of awareness. People are not aware that whatever they are doing for the girls is illegal. The law says 18 years and above, but you have some cultural and societal laws that are against the government law. I'll give you an instance of the Muslim community. It is not about age, it is about whether you found a partner for marriage. And at any age, 15, 16, 17, these are being married off. So they do not have an awareness that the law of Uganda, the children's statute, says 18 years and above. And because they have not been, in the past, they were not taken into courts and justice brought to the children, it has continued and continued. However, this can be stopped by creating awareness to the community. Another issue is about poverty. The families are looking at their children as a way of earning a living. The girls are being initiated to do domestic chores, such as fetching water, cooking, bathing children, cleaning the house. All these are initiating them into being mothers. So at the age of 15, they are looked at as already big enough to go into the issue of marriage. So the girls have not been helped so much to understand that their rights can be fought for, that a girl can have an education to the age of 20, 25, then that's when she can think of marriage. The laws are not vigilant in punishing the perpetrators of child marriage. For instance, a family, the father and the mother will agree and settle issues out of court, have their girl taken on for marriage. And when the law comes in, the issue is sent out of court that the two parties can negotiate. And we are negotiating about a life of a child. So the parents settle out and a little sum is given to them. So you find that the laws are not strong enough to punish the perpetrators who are part of the child marriage. And the families believe that having their daughter married off, they're securing her a future into another rich family. They are keeping her away from premarital sex and pregnancy. But in the end, they are not saving her. Actually, they are perpetuating the issue of early marriage. Whereas we have the children's statutes and the children's rights being handled at all levels of our government. For instance, from the Ministry of Gender, we have the local governments, the local council 3, local council 5, and we have the provisional officers at all levels. However, very few cases of child marriage are being reported to these offices. Why? Because the families prefer to settle out of court. They don't want the courts of law to come into their family issues because they think it is private, and the community tends to just look on because it is so and so's family, it is so and so's family, so we should not interfere. So many girls are continually being taken on for marriage in our midst, and it has happened, and it is continually happening.
In order to combat a certain problem or difficulty within a society, we need to know the root causes of what causes such a thing. So why, in Tanzania, why is there so much child marriage? Again, I'm only going to speak from the perspective of my experience with the pastoralist people, the Maasai. The one reason for child marriage is their tradition. The Maasai have a very elaborate age group system, and men are able to, it's men only who go through these age groups. And there's a time of when they're uncircumcised, then they're circumcised and become warriors, then they move into young eldership, then older eldership. They're only allowed to marry when they are becoming younger elders. Of course, this is changing as more people are educated and men and women are choosing their own partners. A girl would be promised in marriage to a man, sometimes because her father is friends with this man, or because they want to cement relationships between two families. They're looking for the dowry of cows so that when the family gets cows from the girl's dowry, they can use these cows to marry off their sons. Girls would not be encouraged to go to school because they'd be considered that they'll be moving into another family, and they don't need this information that they learn in school. All they need to know is the customs of raising a family, and the Maasai customs with that govern marriage. Another reason would be poverty. Parents would like to get the cows and that they would get for the dowry of their daughters. Many times, in these days, there's been drought. There's been problems of many of the cows dying or the animals dying. So they would want to do this to replenish their flock, or just that the parents themselves are desperate. They have no other means. They have no livestock, so their daughters are a source of income for them. It's a contributing factor to child marriage is that even though there are laws on the books that prevent child marriage in Tanzania, a girl can get married younger than 17 with her parents' consent, and then I think younger than 15 even with the court's consent. So there are loopholes that enable girls to get married, but there are also laws that say schoolgirls should not get married. And I find for ourselves in our struggle with getting girls to get into school, we can use that law and use it to require parents to send their daughters to school. Though these laws are on the books, it doesn't mean that they're well implemented. You might have some zealous education officer who will follow up with families and demand that parents send their children to school if they've been selected to go to government school. But it's not across the board. This is maybe one or two people here or there will follow up like this. On the whole, the government officers do not follow up on how many children, girls, especially girls, are going to school. Often you have collusion with the parents, with the leaders of the village. They're the ones that are supposed to be protecting these girls, but they are bribed by the parents, or they're friendly with them. Sometimes it's the village leaders themselves who are marrying the girls. So you have a whole section here where even though laws are on the books, they're not well enforced. I think the Maasai people, especially ones who are uneducated and traditional, believe that the girls should get married quickly so that they don't lose their interest in the community and the customs and traditions. They feel if they go to school, they will lose the customs and traditions of the Maasai community. Most Maasai want their children to marry Maasai, so if a girl goes off to school, she might marry someone who they call Mswahili, someone who is not Maasai, and then they feel therefore the customs will be gradually lost.
Child marriage has been with us. The truth is, culturally, very many of our parents were married off when they were children, and the vice has continued and continued depending on where you come from, depending on socialization. I'll give you a case. In the urban centers, for instance, Busia, Boda, Maraba, the girls are married off because it is the order of the day. The parents are seeking all sorts of riches from these men. So it has been on with us, and the only way it can be stopped maybe is to have the girls into school. But while the girl child is not in school, then definitely she is left with nothing but maybe to get married and start a new family. Child marriage occurs in those areas because it is the order of the day. Education is not taken as priority, especially for the girls. The girls have been taken on to be housemaids. They are staying at home to take care of their little siblings. So they have been initiated into motherhood at an early age. And at one point they feel they can also make better mothers. Also, it is taken on because the girls feel there is no need for them to be in school anyway, because in the home, some of them are mothers to their own siblings. Take a case when a parent has died. She stays home to take care of the little ones. So in that case, she has been initiated to be a mother at an early age, and therefore she desires to be a mother herself. Also, another thing is the business orientation of some communities. You find that it is business and not education. People are going on, girls are going on to the markets to find food, girls are going to the market to sell merchandise. You find that they're already earning some little money for themselves at an early age. And then this makes them also meet different people, and most of the people they meet, they'll end up being their future husbands. It also happens commonly in the Muslim faith, where it is believed that a husband is supposed to have 4 or 5 wives, and if a family believes that by taking you to a Haji who is rich is securing your future, then no way, because the girl has to go into marriage at an early age. Child marriage in the community, you find a community I'll give an example of the Muslim community. Most of the Muslim wives have been married off when they are young. It has been taken on as a way of life. It is a style for them that at an age of 15 or 18, for as long as there is a rich man who can marry a girl off, she is being taken on. So you find that even the little ones, the young ones, are looking up to such behavior. They're looking up to 15 years and 18 years to get married. So you find that the education system is not taken as something serious within these communities. All they need or desire is to get to some level. Once the girl is slightly big enough, she is taken on to be a wife, and therefore it means even the children she's going to have, little is known, because they will also follow the same trend like the mother. Because she has not had an education, then how can she effectively take her children to school? So it ends up being a cycle within our community.
There is no one answer, and there is not a one-size-fits-all solution to how we go about addressing and ending early and forced child marriage. I think with any human rights violation, the solution must be multifaceted, and it must be holistic, and it really must come from and center the people most affected by the human rights violations, so in this case early and forced child marriage, and they must be at the center of the solution making. And the solution, it also must be context specific. So it must take place at the national, local, and very, very local community level, and again be led by and for community members who know and understand the context better than people like me sitting here in DC. So an example from Amnesty International's work is we had a campaign on child marriage in Burkina Faso, and sections around the world, including Amnesty International USA, worked to support the amnesty section in Burkina Faso, who understood and were members of various communities across Burkina Faso, and they did fantastic work of partnering with local organizations across the country and doing very local level, very grassroots level work, working with local partners to educate various communities about child marriage within certain communities, and about the laws, the recent laws that Burkina Faso was passing, and certain amendments to those laws, and access to services, for example, shelters that provide a safe space for girls or boys who were fleeing child marriage across the country. And they were also working with various government officials who were also committed to the work. So again, it comes from various points and is multifaceted. And I think we need to continue to collect more research. We need to sort of challenge the harmful laws that are already on the books, close the loopholes, and put in place laws that protect children from early and forced child marriage, and also put in place laws that protect survivors who have tried to escape early and forced child marriage. And throughout all of this, we need to uplift the voices of youth, the people most affected, the people most at risk of early and forced child marriage. We need to listen to their stories and their ideas, and put them at the center of any solution making.
Within Tanzania, there are a number of different movements that are working against child marriage. In the Mara region, which is in east of Lake Victoria, there's a large cultural group which are the Wakuria. These people are pastoralists. They also depend on, they also have FGM. Their girls undergo FGM, and many of the girls are married very young. There are a number of movements within the UN population agency. Graca Machel, who was the wife of Samora Machel, and also the second wife of Mandela, has been greatly involved in working against FGM and against early marriage. There are other groups in other parts of the country. Within the Maasai community, we ourselves are ones that work against early marriage, giving the girls options for education. And there are other NGOs who also are helping for girls' education.
The organization I'm so proud to work for is Kakenya's Dream, which was founded by Dr. Kakenya Nataya, who is from the community we serve. And our model is all about empowering transformative education as prevention of child marriage, along with other harmful practices like female genital mutilation, and also general community empowerment. So there's a couple things about our model that make it so effective in ending child marriage. We've actually had 0%, none of our girls have undergone child marriage or FGM or any of these other things. And that's really because it is holistic and it is girl-centered. So we have a boarding school where girls live and they learn and they play, they're kids. And in order to attend, parents pledge not to perform FGM on her, which in our community is deeply linked to time of marriage. And we also start building a relationship with parents in the community, saying, what are your dreams for this girl? What are her dreams? You know, she can go to college. And so by the time a girl's been in the program for several years, all of a sudden her parents are no longer thinking, who's she going to marry? They're thinking, what's she going to do in college? How is she going to come back and help us, you know, lift out of poverty? And it's really an incredible transformation. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes resources, but it is working, and that's really, really exciting for us. And I think it just goes to show that whenever there's an issue like child marriage that has a complex and very deep history, including a wide range of root causes, you can't expect a one-off program, a simple training, an alternate rite of passage to end it in the community. It really has to be holistic, and you have to stay there, you have to be there, and bring men, boys, community leaders, girls especially along, and that's what we're doing.
I think youth themselves can work against child marriage if they are mobilized, but also if they're educated. So if they, these are some of the topics that are even discussed while they're in school. When I say educated, I'm talking beyond primary school. There can be clubs together where the girls and boys discuss these topics. So I think also, though, the girls, as they're learning, they understand better their own rights, and the reason that the fact that they, when they're home, they can really say no to their parents, and then can demand getting an education. I know of one girl who we supported in advanced level studies. She had to fight from primary school to secondary school to get to school because her family wanted to marry her off. But she used the government system. Fortunately, there were government officials and government leaders who were able to support her, and they're the ones that brought her to Emosoy. So it depends very much on the person, and the youth themselves, or the young women themselves, really have to have a lot of courage and determination to insist that they will be going against the grain, going against their customs.
Instead of bringing about change, the only way you can bring about change is to delay the girls in school. Delay the girls in school, because when a girl has had an education, then she cannot be taken on as a wife. At 15 years, 18 years in Uganda, a girl is between secondary school, senior 4, senior 5, senior 6. So within that time, if a girl is still at school, then she has known the value of having an education. She has known the value of being a self-reliant woman in the future. She has known the value of having herself educated for the best of her family. So when we delay the girls in school, it means we are delaying marriage and we are delaying pregnancy at the same time. The government has come up through the Ministry of Gender to enforce the law, the children's statute. A child is anyone below the age of 18. So anyone below the age of 18 is not supposed to get married. Or in the recent past, we've seen girls who have been forced into marriage, especially in the Muslim communities. Police has come in. Civil society organizations have come in, And all this is done to help the girls to stay out of marriage because they are too young. Some families are looking at poverty, and by marrying off their children, they think they are earning a future, they are having money out of them. This is not right, because the girl has been introduced into a system when she's still too young to manage. And therefore, when she goes in when she's too young, it means you're going to have issues of maternal health problems occurring to the same girl. Then you end up having a vicious cycle of problems around this young girl. Different movements have come up to secure the girl's future. You find that under the AMPCAN, for example, AMPCAN believes in securing lives of the children that have been neglected in general. So what is done is, when you find a girl has been forced into marriage, they have a toll-free line that you can use to call on them, and then the perpetuator will be taken into courts of law, and then justice will be done for this girl. Also, different women have come up to help girls have skills. When girls have skills, then they are kept busy doing different things, vocational, busy in school. So in all this, we are trying to keep them away from the peers who would be encouraging them into issues of marriage.
I'll speak from my experience here at Emusoi. We've established Emusoi in 1999 to empower pastoralist girls, especially through education. We started with 6 girls, and now we have helped over close to 2,000 girls since we started. Our aim is to prepare these girls to go to secondary school, educate them through secondary school, and then to some professional training. Education, I feel, is one of the main ways to stop child marriage, because it's a long-term method, but if the girls themselves are educated, they will be able to know their rights, and they will fight for their rights and demand education, further education. Also, even if girls, some of our students who just finished secondary school, or even they drop out in secondary school, because of what they have been learning, they are changed. So when they marry and have their children, they will be making sure their children go to school. As it is now, I see that the women are one of the largest or the most influential groups in helping to stop child marriage. They bring their children to us even in secret, saying, I want my daughter to go to school. My husband doesn't want this. I know he will beat me when I get back, but I want her to go to school. I want her to have a better life than I do. So they're the ones that are supporting their daughters going to school. If we have found, if there's a mother who doesn't want her daughter to go to school, then that girl will not finish secondary school. She will drop out, she will get married, she will get pregnant, so that without the support of mothers, there's no way that we can stop child marriage. As to regards to what groups are best to work with, I think, say work with mothers, because I've found that there are different NGOs who have had women's groups, who are women's groups who are income generating. Maybe there's a grinding mill, or they're sewing beads, or doing something like this. But their aim is to get money to get their daughters to school. So that educating their daughters is always a big part of these projects. There are other NGOs that are working, but not on the same scale as Emusoi, of supporting girls in school. But we have found that girls, besides just having their school fees paid, these are, now again, I'm speaking of Maasai girls, instead of having their school fees paid, they need more moral support. They need to be talking together about their experiences, and they need a preparation for secondary school, because the girls come from very poor educational backgrounds in the villages. So with those backgrounds, and if they go directly into secondary school, they're not going to progress well. So we feel that we give them a year's preparatory course in order to prepare them for secondary school, which is a psychological, academic, social preparation.
Yes, we can stop child marriage by empowering women, empowering mothers of the family. When a mother has been empowered to understand the rights of the daughter, then she cannot have her girl married off at an early age. For instance, if a mother has been married off at the age of 15 and she has lived the kind of life, she has no problem with her daughter going through the same kind of life. However, if a woman has been empowered to know that early child marriage is bad, then she will be the flag bearer to stop child marriage. Keeping girls in schools is the most important thing, because we can delay child marriage by having an education for these girls. At St. Jude Little Junior School, we believe in empowering the children, and we believe in empowering the girl child. Keeping them in school helps us to postpone the issue of marriage. During the parents' meetings, we encourage parents to have their children continue with schools. We have gone to the level of even accessing and outsourcing people, such as the probation officers, to come and talk to the children. We have talked about Nyenga Hospital coming in to talk to the girls, especially about their sexual reproductive health. And in all this, we are trying to make sure that girls understand themselves and also value their education. And by so doing, we are keeping away child marriage from them. For us, we are happy to see them going through school from primary 1 to primary 7 without going out for marriage. And we have not had any cases of any of our children being taken for marriage, especially when they are still with them. So we shall keep talking, creating awareness to the mothers, to the parents, to the community leaders, and also calling upon all civil society organizations to make sure that child marriage stops and does not continue, because it endangers the girl child. Community outreach programs are very good, and in this you find that this is where you find the people that we need to target when it comes to stopping child marriage. Community programs such as community meetings and teachings, where we find the communities back in their villages. If it is a landing site, we need to talk to the people at the landing site. We need to talk to the mothers in the markets. We need to talk to the mothers in the gardens. They come together and we discuss at churches, at funeral rites, and all where we have access. The issue of child marriage should be addressed. And in this, we shall be able to postpone child marriage and to keep the girls out of the vice. In our midst to stop child marriage, we should target the mothers, first of all, in the homes. If a mother knows the purpose of education, then we are postponing child marriage. We should focus on the policymakers. The policymakers, I'm talking about the councillors, the parliamentarians, and all people who own Uganda's laws, that the issue of child marriage should stop. And in this, by breaking the law, also the enforcement wing, talk about the police, the professional officers, the local leaders and local council ones, all should come up and enforce the children's statute. 18 and above is the age limit for Uganda as per the Ugandan Constitution 1995. Our Ugandan education plays a big part in delaying child marriage, because the Ugandan education starts at the age of 3. And at the age of 3, we are into pre-primary school, that is the kindergarten, up to the age of 6. So from 6, we have the primary section that runs for 7 years. There the child is about 13, 14 years, depending. Then from primary school, we go to the secondary school. Secondary school is 6 years. So 13 plus 6 is 19. Already, the child is an adult. And from 19, secondary school, we have the tertiary and the university education. So that runs between 2 to 5 years, depending on the course. So that means that if a child goes through all those processes of education, from kindergarten to primary, secondary, university, by the time she is graduating, she is 22, 25, depending on the course. So that means we are postponing child marriage. However, if a child does not go to school at the age of 13, 15, She feels fed up with the community. She feels does not fit with everybody, especially the peers who are at school, and then she will resort to child marriage. So I encourage everybody that education, especially of a child, a girl child, will help us to postpone child marriage. We have a saying that educating a woman is educating the nation. If all women are educated, then we shall have a better future and a better future without child marriage. The youth can play a big role in stopping child marriage, because if one has gone through all the education system without being married off, then they know the value of education. They know the esteem of not being married off at an early age. So the youth can be used through drama, through songs, to teach others, also to encourage their siblings, because every youth, whether single or married, they have a family, they have the siblings. So teaching their own siblings the value of education, and also the solution to this problem, like I've already mentioned, is about sensitization, is about education, is about valuing the girls' rights. And at this level, I would like to appeal to all policymakers. I would like to appeal to all people of goodwill. I would like to appeal to the mothers of this nation that we should all come up and stop the vice of child marriage. All the girls should be encouraged to go to school. The government has provided universal primary education, universal secondary education. We should take part in the government services, and in this we are helping to postpone the vice. I'm appealing to all people who are capable of helping the vulnerable girls in the communities with the requirements to stay in school. That will be the best way. And in the community, we should be whistleblowers. Somebody's girl has been taken up for marriage, please blow the whistle harder, that we can help challenge the vice of child marriage.